Comey's out.
He was not doing a good job.
President Trump defends his firing of FBI Director James Comey. Capitol Hill reacts.
I don't think he deserved to be fired.
So that's the president's decision to make.
Both sides of the aisle weigh in on the president's stunning decision. Fatima preparations. The Holy Father asks for prayers before his big trip and focuses on mothers during his weekly talk. And a brotherly bond will show you a triple play in the class of 2017 at West Point on EWTN News Nightly for Wednesday, May 10th, 2017. Good evening from Washington, D.C., and thank you to those of you joining us from around the world for news from a Catholic perspective. I'm Lauren Ashburn. President Donald Trump fiercely defending his decision to fire FBI Director James Comey. The president is vowing to replace him with someone who will bring back the spirit and prestige of the FBI. There's strong reaction from both Republicans and Democrats on Capitol Hill. Correspondent Jason Calvi will bring us that story in a moment. First, Wyatt Goolsbee reports from the White House. Good evening, Wyatt.
Lauren, good evening. President Trump says Republicans and Democrats will soon be thanking him for firing FBI Director James Comey. Last night's surprise announcement comes amid an FBI investigation into contacts between Trump's election campaign and Russia. The president says the reason is simple.
He wasn't doing a good job, very simply. He was not doing a good job.
President Trump addressed reporters in the Oval Office, where he was joined by former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. The White House says the president heeded the recommendation of the Deputy Attorney General and wants an FBI director who is impartial and not political.
Jim Comey had lost the confidence of people at the FBI, people on both sides of the partisan aisles.
Comey's firing throws into question the future of the FBI's investigation into Trump's campaign's possible connections to Russia. The president calls those investigations a hoax and denies any involvement with the Russians. After his inauguration, President Trump welcomed Comey with open arms.
Oh, and there's James. He's become more famous than me.
But Trump criticized Comey for not pressing charges against rival Hillary Clinton after a probe into her use of a private email server while Secretary of State. Clinton's campaign manager says while he wasn't happy with how Comey handled the investigation, firing Comey is wrong.
The president and his attorney general, both of whom potentially are implicated in this investigation, made a decision to fire him. Okay, and they did so without appointing a special prosecutor to oversee this case.
Comey was nominated by President Barack Obama for the FBI post in 2013 to a 10-year term. Today, the White House says it wants the FBI to finish its investigation into Russia interference in the 2016 election. Spokeswoman Sarah Huckabee Sanders says the administration encourages Congress to complete the investigation so that it will be proven that there is no evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. Sanders says the White House does not think appointing a special prosecutor is necessary. Lauren?
Wyatt, let's move forward. Who can we expect to replace the FBI director?
Lauren, the search is on for both short and long-term replacements. Comey's deputy FBI veteran Andrew McCabe is now acting director of the FBI, and President Trump will meet with him later today. But Attorney General Jeff Sessions and senior leaders at the Justice Department are interviewing additional candidates to do the interim job until a successor is nominated by the president. Lauren?
Wyatt Goolsbee at the White House. Thank you, Wyatt. Democratic lawmakers are united in demanding a special prosecutor pick up the investigation into Russian meddling in the U.S. election. But Republicans say they're being hypocrites. Capitol Hill correspondent Jason Calvi continues our team coverage. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening, Lauren. More than a dozen Republican senators have also voiced concerns about the firing, but the Senate Majority Leader is echoing the White House's stance, and Vice President Mike Pence came here to defend the firing as many lawmakers have big questions tonight. Democrats voicing outrage over President Trump's firing of FBI Director James Comey.
This is what the president is deeply insecure about. He feels the dragnet tightening on the Russia investigation. I believe that's why he's let Comey go. So we need a special prosecutor to pick up the criminal investigation.
And some Republicans have their own concerns, including the chair of the Senate panel investigating Russian meddling into the fall election.
The timing of it and the reasoning of it make no sense to me.
But Republican leadership backed the White House, shutting down talk of appointing a special prosecutor for the Russia investigation.
If a special prosecutor takes over and there's no prosecution, you're never going to know what went on in the investigation.
Our Democratic colleagues complaining about the removal of an FBI director whom they themselves repeatedly and sharply criticized. That removal being done by a man, Rod Rosenstein, whom they repeatedly and effusively praised.
Vice President Mike Pence came to Capitol Hill today to defend the move, calling it the right decision at the right time.
There is no evidence of collusion between our campaign and any Russian officials. That's not what, but let me be clear with you. That was not what this is about. It was time for a fresh start at the FBI.
The Senate Intelligence Committee has asked ousted Director Comey to testify behind closed doors next week. The acting FBI director will take Comey's spot in a public hearing on threats to the U.S. scheduled for tomorrow. The confirmation of the next FBI director requires a simple majority here in the Senate. Lauren?
How unprecedented, or precedented, I guess, is this firing, Jason?
Only the second time in history a president has fired the FBI director. President Clinton fired Director William Sessions back in 1993 because of allegations of ethical problems.
Thank you so much. Jason Calvi reporting from Capitol Hill. Joining us now is former U.S. Attorney Joe DeGenova. Thank you so much, sir, for stopping by.
My pleasure.
The timing of this firing looks very questionable. He could have fired him months ago. Why now?
Well, because he said that he wanted to give him an opportunity to reestablish his credibility, reestablish the credibility of the FBI after all the criticism of his July 5th news conference and his October 28th letter. But unfortunately, the director could not do that. He did not live up to the expectations of the president. His testimony last week was the real capper when he showed up on Capitol Hill and gave what many people believe was bizarre, uninformative, and really disturbing testimony.
That many people thought were actual fabrications.
Yes, well, it was all about him, which is what it always is with James Comey. And so when Rod Rosenstein was confirmed 96-4 as the Deputy Attorney General, he came in, he reviewed all the evidence against Mr. Comey about the unethical conduct, the violation of the statutes, the rules, and the regulations. By holding that July 5th news conference, he concluded unequivocally that the director had to go, and that's what happened.
What are your sources inside the FBI telling you about the reaction? We're hearing stories of how Comey found out about the news that it was on a TV that was behind him.
The people inside the Bureau are relieved. He has been a pox on that house. They are very uncomfortable with his presence. The July 5th news conference was an embarrassment to them. There are some people in the hierarchy who defend him because he gave them their jobs. But by and large, people are pleased and they're looking forward to a new director, and they're hoping it's going to be somebody like Ray Kelly, the former police commissioner of New York.
What happens next with this FBI investigation? There are a lot of people stirring conspiracy theories right now. We saw Henry Kissinger at the White House today, hearkening back to 1973. We saw Lavrov there today, and we saw, we just hear all of the Democrats going, oh boy, here we go again. What's going to happen? Well,
first of all, these investigations are run by professionals. It will continue. Whatever it is they're investigating, we're told it's counterintelligence. The Democrats on no basis claim it's criminal. Whatever it is, it's going to continue, with or without a new FBI director. When the new FBI director comes in, it'll continue some more.
Somebody told me they didn't fire the whole FBI.
Yeah,
they just fired the director.
Yeah, well, the Democrats are looking for an issue, not solution, and what they're trying to do is create a fog, and it's just not going to work.
All right, Joe DeGenova, so happy to have you here, former U.S. Attorney.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The Senate Judiciary Committee holds hearings on 3 pending nominations to the federal government. In the hot seat today, Makan Delrahim, who's nominated to be an assistant attorney general in the antitrust division, Stephen Engel to work in the Office of Legal Counsel, and Noel Francisco. If confirmed, Francisco will represent the government in cases at the Supreme Court as Solicitor General. He's a former clerk to late Justice Antonin Scalia. An update to the closely watched race for Omaha, Nebraska's mayor. The pro-life Catholic Democrat has lost. Heath Mello lost to the incumbent Republican 53-46. His pro-life stance drew backlash from some Democrats and abortion activists. That didn't stop Senator Bernie Sanders from throwing his support to Mello. Pope Francis sends a video message to the people of Portugal ahead of his trip to Fatima.
O Senhor vos abençoe e a Virgem Mãe vos proteja.
Holy Father says he's coming to share the message of hope and peace. He asks for understanding about the limits of his trip, since he won't have time to visit everyone. The Pope's pilgrimage is just one of the topics that came up today during his weekly meeting with pilgrims at the Vatican. The Holy Father says we can learn how to persevere in hope by looking to the Blessed Mother.
Stava lì nel più brutto momento, nel crudele momento.
Pope Francis says Mary was there, standing at the foot of the cross, suffering with her son, a model of courage and obedience. Vatican correspondent Mary Shovlin joins us from Rome. Mary, the Holy Father focused on Mary during his remarks today. He's preparing to leave for Fatima. Tell us what he said.
Lauren, he continues his catechesis on hope that he began last year after the Jubilee. So he focused today on Mary as mother of hope, Mary as a witness of hope. And he pointed to the fact that at the foot of the cross, seeing her son so cruelly killed on the cross, unjustly killed, she stayed, she remained. And he kept emphasizing that she remained. And he reminded us all that her steadfastness in prayer and being by Christ's side, he reminded us that we all have a mother. None of us are orphans. We have a mother, Mary, who is in heaven.
Well, it's a big week for him. Did he mention his upcoming trip to Fatima?
He did. Each week, the Holy Father greets the different language groups of pilgrims who come to this weekly audience. And so today, his remarks in Portuguese, he mentioned his upcoming trip by asking for prayers. And he asked everyone around the world, Lauren, to join him spiritually, if you will, as a pilgrim of hope and of peace. And he said, please, to pray for him as well for the safety of his trip and for the success of his trip, and to join together in prayer with him.
Well, you leave tomorrow to head to Fatima. Tell us what the events are going to be on EWTN. I know you're hosting all of our coverage.
Lauren, that's right. We're going to be covering every event this weekend in Fatima with Pope Francis from the time he touches down at the airbase there in Portugal until he takes off again in Rome. No one's going to be covering this event like EWTN, and so follow us on all of our platforms, I would say, for those for all the events. The two main events, which you asked about, would be, of course, the Rosary Vigil the night before, that Friday night when he gets there, the statue processing around the square in Fatima, the candlelight vigil. That followed the next day by the canonization mass, 2 of the 3 visionaries being made saints. So 2 huge events that you don't want to miss. So follow us on EWTN, follow us on social media, follow the National Catholic Youth Register and Catholic News Agency. We're covering this from all angles.
Okay, definitely we'll be doing that. Thank you so much, Mary Shovlin, EWTN News Nightly Vatican correspondent.
Thank you.
The apparitions of the Virgin Mary by the Shepherd Children has created one of the world's leading Catholic pilgrimage sites, drawing 6 million people a year. The shrine dedicated to the children is preparing for 1 million tourists coming this weekend as the Holy Father visits. You may not know this, but Francisco and Jacinta had another sibling, and the Associated Press spoke to his son, the nephew of the soon-to-be saints. He says before the apparitions, Francisco loved to play the flute, Jacinta loved to dance, but after seeing Mary, all they wanted to do was pray. Pope Francis thanks the head of the Coptic Orthodox Church for his hospitality during his recent visit to Egypt. In a letter to Pope Tawadros II, Pope Francis says he's grateful to strengthen the baptismal unity between Copts and Catholics. He's also said he's praying for him and for peace in Egypt and the Middle East. The Pope traveled to Egypt for 2 days last month. Coming up, a report card on human rights in Pakistan, including the plight of Christians. And the fight against ISIS. A new change in U.S. policy could be a game changer in the region. An independent watchdog group looks at the state of human rights in Pakistan, a country known for persecuting Christians. New laws are helping protect women, but other human rights are still limited. The Human Rights Commission of Pakistan says the country is the world's biggest enforcer of the death penalty. 432 people were executed in the last 3 years. Freedom of speech is also a problem, with increased censorship and intimidation of the media. And the group reports several incidents of violence against Christians. They're often accused of blasphemy against Islam. We're tracking a new chapter in the fight against ISIS. The U.S. plans to arm Kurdish forces so they can begin assaults against ISIS headquarters in Raqqa, Syria. This comes despite heavy opposition from Turkey. Joining us now, Jamie McIntyre, senior writer covering defense and national security for the Washington Examiner. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
President Trump approved a plan to directly arm the Kurdish forces fighting against ISIS. But Turkey is having a big problem with this. President Erdogan is going to come to the White House. He's expected, I think, next week.
That's right.
So what effect is this going to have on our relationship with Turkey?
Well, it's already pretty strained over this whole issue. The United States military has decided that the most effective fighting force on the ground are these Kurdish Peshmerga fighters. They've been able to have a lot of success on the battlefield. And President Trump wants to defeat ISIS swiftly. You may recall during the campaign, he talked about doing it very quickly.
Right away, yes.
Well, the only force that's in a position to mount an assault on Raqqa right now is this loose coalition of Syrian fighters, Arab, Turkmen, and of course the Kurdish forces. But the problem is Turkey considers this group of Kurdish militia, known as the YPG, to be terrorists. It says it's basically one and the same with a group called the PKK, that is a separatist group fighting the Turkish government. And the U.S. says, look, these YPG fighters, they're not threatening Turkey at all, and we need them to defeat ISIS. And Turkey and the Turkish president is very upset.
So it'll be very interesting to see.
He believed he had a commitment from President Trump not to do this.
And President Trump has done it, and now this visit next week is going to be interesting to watch. Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis, while he was in Denmark, spoke about the delicate relationship with Turkey and the U.S. arming the Kurds. Let's take a listen.
Our intent is to work with the Turks, alongside one another to take Raqqa down, and we are going to sort it out, and we'll figure out how we're going to do it, but we're all committed to it.
You've been covering this stuff for a really long time. How can Turkey and the U.S. work together to fight ISIS?
Well, you know, Turkey is doing a lot, as Secretary Mattis said, particularly in the northern part of Syria, where they cleared off their border right and stopped the flow of foreign fighters in and out of Syria, along the Syrian-Turkish border. But what they're not prepared to do, and what the United States doesn't really want them to do, is to go down to Raqqa, ISIS's self-declared, capital, and take part in that assault. And what you're basically seeing is the United States slow-rolling the Turks.
Right.
They're constantly working the problem, but they're never solving it. Meanwhile, they're going ahead. And of course, the most obvious sign of that is this idea. Now they're going to provide weapons. It's basically small arms, ammunition, anti-tank weapons, that sort of thing. But they're enabling them so they can mount that final assault on Raqqa, and they're going to do it without Turkey.
And very quickly, I'm being told we don't have any time. When will Raqqa fall?
Well, we don't have a timeline, but soon, probably in the next couple of months.
Okay. Jamie McIntyre, senior writer covering defense and national security for the Washington Examiner. A pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, we're joined by the newly named president and CEO of Americans United for Life. And West Point cadets.
A little surreal, like we're all here, we're all actually here, we're all about to graduate.
3 brothers share a unique story. Today is the feast of St. Damien of Molokai, a priest who was born in Belgium but spent years in Hawaii. He helped the poor and those with leprosy, later catching the illness himself. He died in 1889 at the age of 49. Americans United for Life, a pro-life legal group, welcomes new leadership. And here she is, Catherine Glenn Foster, the new president and CEO, joins us. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Congratulations. Tell us about the new direction.
Absolutely. Well, AUL has an innovative mother-child approach where we recognize that you aren't required to choose between the mother and the child when we're talking about abortion. Mothers are harmed just as children are and are victimized by a corrupt and profit-driven industry.
The House passed the health care bill, including halting federal funding for Planned Parenthood for a year. The bill is now in the Senate. What do you want to see in that Senate version of the bill?
I want to see continued protection for life, just as the House bill does. Defunding of Planned Parenthood, absolutely. Hyde protections, and a strong pro-life message.
You're also involved in the state legislatures. Those are coming to a close. What do you think we can expect coming up for pro-life legislation?
Well, AUL is involved in about half the states right now this session, and we can expect a number of different things, including taxpayer empowerment to fund comprehensive holistic women's health instead of abortion clinics, and also health and safety regulations, chemical abortion regulations, and other ways to protect women from the abortion industry.
You know, no women are really included in the Senate Republican and Democratic working groups talking about repealing the Affordable Health Care Act. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think the voice of women is important. I do believe that the representatives there, the senators there, are representing the voices of women, but I absolutely hope that the voices of women are very strongly heard throughout that process.
And how will you be involved? How will your group be involved?
We are going to speak very firmly in favor of protections for life and just speak out on that issue throughout the entire process.
What is the one thing you're looking forward to?
In this role, I'm looking forward to a lot of things. Definitely reaching out to a lot of groups, to the youth, to the pro-life generation, and making sure that they know and that all of America knows that every innocent human life deserves to be protected in the law from conception to natural death.
Well, best of luck to you in your new job at AUL. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
You'll notice something different at this year's West Point graduation. 3 of the graduates all share the same last name. You could call them a band of brothers. The West Point class of 2017 will carry on the tradition of the long gray line.
All right, bring it in for a safety brief.
But for 3 cadets, a bond beyond the uniform. The Ogreziak brothers of Texas are set to graduate from the U.S. Military Academy this month. Together. It's a triple play that hasn't happened since 1985.
A little surreal, like we're all here, we're all actually here, we're all about to graduate, and finally all split up to our all across the world.
The brothers entered West Point in 2013. Sumner, his twin Cole, and older brother Noah, who spent a year at West Point's prep school before becoming a plebe along with the twins. Today, the brothers are in different regiments, but connect when they can.
Usually on the weekends, we'll go buy a pizza at Grant Hall over there, and we'll watch a movie together, just hang out, kind of unwind from the busy week.
For 4 tough years, they marched, hit the books, learned field maneuvers, and how to drill. The Army is now sending them down very different paths.
Cole does really good in classes, so that's why he's going to go be a doctor.
Noah to Signal Corps, Sumner to engineering in South Korea. In Texas, their parents have 3 times the pride.
They'll be prepared for anything.
The Ogreziaks are a military family. They understand the potential perils of 3 sons serving in the Army.
Boy, as a service member, I'm proud of them because I know they will do their best, they will give it their all, serve their country, and live up to the core values of the Army: honor, respect, devotion to duty. And Christine and I pray to God that they're kept out of harm's way.
Captain Randall Ogreziak will personally give the new second lieutenants their oaths on graduation day, May 27th.
And then he'll be our first salute too, and I couldn't be more happy.
A family's commitment to serving their country with 3 brothers in arms. What a fabulous story. Best luck to that family. That does it for EWTN News Nightly. To all of you around the world, I'm Lauren Ashburn. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Good night, and God bless.